with a bell. Oh, we're being recorded.
Yes.
Goodness. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary's weekly celebration of service for June 15th, 2021. I'm your current president, Ashley Wesley. Thank you for being here. Natalie, please show the flag for 15 seconds of respectful silence. We ask that you remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Thank you. And now, in a rare appearance, I would like to welcome myself for our reflection today. And I was just having a conversation in the main lobby before our meeting started that ties directly into what I was going to say today. So when I became president nearly a year ago to the day, I shared with you some transparency about fears that I had and some hopes that I had for our club in the next year. And I'll quote myself: "As we face fears, I wanted to share a personal value that pulls me through profound joy and immense sorrow of human experience. I have a tattoo that quotes Bruce Springsteen from Badlands. For the ones who had a notion deep inside, it ain't no sin to be glad you're alive." It means to me that we can and should celebrate the successes, joys, fun, and proud moments while being able to hold the sorrows and the deep sadness and the challenges together. I cannot go forward with celebrating this year. This is me speaking almost a year ago. I cannot go forward with celebrating this year we're excited to embark on without acknowledging the fears and sorrows that we face as a society. I believe that we can endure both. They're not mutually exclusive. And there is no group that I'd rather share this range of emotions with than all of you. And as I reflect on those words that I wrote going into this position, not knowing what it would hold and if we would ever meet again in person, which we won't in my presidency, and all of the challenges I didn't know we would face, I reflect more on the things that we've been able to accomplish and the true sorrow that we've endured. We've all lost loved ones. We've all seen so many challenges, you know, in our world and in our community and in our personal lives. But we've also had so many things to celebrate. And I look around this screen, which is a lot different than it was a year ago. We've inducted so many new members. We've brought people back to the club that used to be in our club and have moved away or now returned to us. And I'm just so delighted to have shared this year with you. And I'm holding those sorrows and those joys simultaneously today. And you know, one final note: the president of Rotary International, Holger Knox, said that his theme, Rotary Opens Opportunities, he didn't know would be so fortuitous for us in this past year, and it certainly has. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this journey and helping me assuage any fears that I had going into this year. I've had so much support and help, and I'm going to cut myself short so I don't keep going because I could talk all day. But I do think that we can hold both of those things together. And I couldn't agree with myself more from a year ago that there's no other group that I would rather share those things with than all of you. So thank you. And let's move on to the rest of our meeting today. We have a few guests joining us today. Guests of Jim Bright, who's vacationing with lovely Anne. Suzanne Owen is with us, and Clara Stanley. Thank you so much for being back with us. So good to see you. And guest of Susie Graham, Lynn Coyne is joining us. Welcome, Lynn. And guest of our club, Carolyn Fry, is joining us from the Bloomington Sunrise Club. And Megan Gearhart is joining us from Rotaract. I saw your face. I don't see you now, but welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyone else that I am missing? I see Megan Thompson is joining us. Are you still in Bloomington, Megan?
No, I am in Portland, Oregon. For those who don't know, I relocated here. But again, so thankful for Zoom because I am still able to join you all. So happy to be here.
Well, so good to see you and come back anytime. Okay, I think that's everybody for guests today. So thank you for being here. And thanks to our producers, Natalie Blaze, Michael Shermis, and Aaron Davis for making everything run so smoothly. And our roundabout reporter for this week is Judy Schroeder. A few birthdays to celebrate: Jim Harvey on the 20th, Marshall Goss on the 20th, and Peter Kroner on the 20th. A lot of June 20th babies there. Congratulations. And membership anniversaries: Martha Wales has been a member of our club for 8 years, and Gil Souza has been a member of our club for 2 years. Thank you so much for being a part of the Rotary family. One quick announcement before we get to our program. Our Rotary Changeover Celebration Social is scheduled for Thursday, July 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Switchyard Pavilion. This is a family-friendly event, so bring your spouses and your kids and whoever else you want to invite. And we'll have refreshments and fellowship with your fellow Rotarians. You'll receive an email requesting your RSVP this week, so look out for that. And please plan to join us changing over to a new Rotary year. We have just a few minutes here for Happy Dollars. I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for JT's presentation and some Q&A. So do we have just a few Happy Dollars to share, guests included?
Okay.
Charlotte?
Yes, I'll give 10 Happy Dollars for just being alive.
Love it.
Yeah.
The Gospel of Bruce Springsteen.
Right. I like that. And I also got to walk all the way around the square yesterday from home.
Woohoo.
Ooh. And stopped in at Mirth, unfortunately.
Well, I can't let Charlotte's $10 go unmatched, so I'm happy to do $10 as well, because I'm happy about Charlotte.
Thank you, Susie. Any other Happy Dollars? Well, I'm happy that I see Brad Kimmel's joined us, and welcome. So glad to have you. I'll put in $5 for that. And Sarah Laughlin.
I've got 10 because this week is the birthdays of both of my kids, Isaac on June 18th and Hannah on June 16th.
Wow.
So it's always been 2 birthdays and Father's Day all in 1 week. We're thoroughly sick of cake by the end of the week. But Isaac is actually coming on July 3rd to celebrate Hannah and Eric's wedding a year ago. And so I'm going to get to see them all too, which is extra
Wonderful.
special fun.
And here comes Raj.
Ashley, do you hear me?
Yes, Raj.
Well, in celebrating Liberation and Freedom Juneteenth Day this Saturday, I add $500 to our club diversity fund.
Wow.
Great.
Thank you so much, Raj.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Amazing.
Go, Raj. And thank you, Raj. I commit $10, $20 as a thank you to Ashley for her year of leading us in these interesting times.
Thank you, Glenda.
Great.
Lance Epperly.
Yeah, I'd like to donate $10. I've been fortunate enough to participate in the international convention this week, which is going on. So I've been able to get a lot of inspiration from some inspirational people throughout the world. So it is kind of unique to be in Taiwan 1 minute, in France the next minute, and certainly enjoying every minute of it.
Wonderful.
Lance, can people still join the convention for the rest of the week if they would like to?
Yes, you would have to go on the RI website and get registered, but they can send you the link. It does go through, I think closing ceremonies is Thursday.
All right. Last call for Happy Dollars. Okay, without further ado, Charlotte Zitlow, would you introduce our speaker today?
I'm delighted. Thank you. Can you hear me? Good. All right. Once upon a time when JT had more hair, he was president of the student body at IU, and I was running the United Way, and that's where I met him. He was one of the young people that were just so amazing that they came to work on the United Way campaign that year. And we did better that year with students than we'd ever done before, partly because of JT. He came from Terre Haute, I know, and it was all right. I liked Terre Haute, and I think Terre Haute has got lots of good things, but JT is certainly one of them. And from there, of course, he was clearly very gifted in working with people and for people. And he went on to do lots of different things. He got a master's degree at SPIA, what was once upon a time SPIA. Was it in nonprofit management or just management? Yeah. And then ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania in State College. Weren't you there? Yes.
Michigan State.
Michigan State. Well, wrong state. Sorry. Michigan is even better. So JT went work in. So he's done work in colleges, and then he came back to Bloomington to do a bunch of different things. He'll probably tell us about that. But he worked his way up the ladder, so to speak. And now he's at the top of two ladders, and I hope he doesn't fall between them. He's now head of the Alumni Association. He's been doing that for a number of years now. And I'm sure he's utilizing all his skills that he showed us way back when in bringing people together, which is his forte. And as the president of director of the Alumni Association. But then to top that, when Dan Smith stepped down, the foundation board decided to bring JT onto the IU Foundation to head it temporarily, I guess, as an interim president. But I think this interim is stretching itself. So now he's got two different ladders that he's at the top of. All have to do with bringing alumni and people together to support the university, which he believes in, and which I think has probably been one of the major factors in his life. And he now lives on the Beeline Trail, just down the block from me, in a house that he says that they've been reworking, an old house that was behind vines down by Cardinal Spirits.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so now when we go by the red house that's been renovated down there, we can wave at JT after you've gone by my porch and waved at me. Okay. So welcome to Rotary, JT. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for coming.
Well, Charlotte, I've only said no to you once, and I probably was probably a big mistake because there was no way that I could decline an invitation that came from you. I just have to start by, once I see everybody's faces on here, it's just incredible to see so many good friends and so many people whose names appear on the rolls or in the paper about so many good things that happen in this community. So it's really an honor to be with you today. I have to say that I would not be standing here, I am very certain, were it not for all the lessons I learned from Charlotte and all the grace and empathy and good advice I got from Dick McKeag. It's just such an honor to speak to a group and see those two people who made such an indelible mark on my life at such a formative stage in my life. And I'd like to say that I try to show up most days being the kind of leaders and counselors and developers of people that those two people are. So I just have to start extemporaneously by saying that. And it is kind of also strange to be in this role because when I came to IU, Charlotte really and Ellen Ehrlich really opened me up to two things. One is the power of women's leadership in a community, but also to this whole idea that there's a whole set of activities that go on in a society that really connect with government and business, but also are a force for good. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I just have to start by honoring those two people for whom, who changed the trajectory of my life. Well, actually, I said three: Ellen, Charlotte, and Dick. So thank you. In front of everybody, I just want to thank you once more for all you've done for me, unselfishly and with a profound patience. I know at times. So I'm guessing a lot of you have heard a fair amount about the historic proportions of IU's for All bicentennial campaign. And many of you, as I look, played important roles as advocates and donors for IU. And I just want to start by thanking you for that. Most of the IU announcements touted all the money that was raised, the structures that we built, the programs we created. And what I really want to focus on is a little bit of the history of philanthropy at Indiana University, but really focus on some stories of the human impact of these gifts and the ripple effect that that creates, and why, in my mind, philanthropy really matters. Philanthropy, by the classical Greek sense of the word, basically means love of humankind. In its American expression, it involves voluntary action for the public good. Since the early days of the Republic, Americans formed associations and groups to advance the common good. They have given generously of their time, talent, treasure to improve the human condition through charitable, educational, religious, scientific institutions. And philanthropy in its best expression and fullest expression in America has also taken the form of political and social movements as well, that really were intended for the betterment of society. So it's that whole range of activity with the vision of making things better that I use as my definition of philanthropy. At Indiana University and most universities, philanthropy has been reduced to big fundraising drives. But the reality is that that is one of many dimensions of philanthropy. But at the core motivation of the donors I've met, that core motivation really remains true to the classical Greek and uniquely American expressions of the word.
Yes.
Their gifts are the expression of a deep love of humanity and an enduring desire to improve the human condition. So the history of philanthropy at IU starts in 1854, about a block or two away from my current home, when a fire destroyed the campus and the president rallied alumni to raise funds and lobby the state to rebuild. The first gift was offered by a Cincinnati bookseller who donated a collection of books to replace those lost in the fire. Now, advocacy and resource development were both and proposition in those early days. The Bloomington had to fight hard to keep the university here and to get resources and people here to really build what we now take for granted. In those early years, much of the fundraising was episodic and organized kind of organically. It was a lot of random gifts, modest pass-the-hat fund drives, and a few orchestrated efforts to acquire art or build a small, modest building. Because at that time, this institution was really operating on very modest means and really struggling to grow in its pioneer era. By virtue of my job as the chief alumni officer for the university and as just a nerdy person who loves history, I've read most of the alumni quarterly publications that really document what alumni were sharing with one another and the dialogue and the story and the narrative around alumni engagement and the affairs of the university. And what you can get from that is that alumni played a significant volunteer role in those early days, helping recruit students, present commencement exercises, give lectures during the commencement week. It was a whole week, imagine that. Advocate for enhancements to the work and program of the university, whether that be an athletic program, a new academic program, and also a lot of outreach in their own communities to see how this state university could be put in service to the needs of a growing state. The first full-time advancement professional was hired in 1915. The operating budget for this person, titled Alumni Secretary, was $115. So that's about $3,000 in today's dollars. The budget of the Alumni Association today hovers around 8.5 to 9 million. So it's a pretty modest start. For many years, all the educational institutional advancement work, engaging constituents, government relations, student recruiting, fundraising, communicating with the general public was all carried out by the alumni secretary and a relatively small staff responsible for publications and outreach. Now, I will admit here for a moment that I'm in dangerous territory because we have Judy Schroeder on here who will probably correct the record at the end, because Judy was a masterful publisher and editor of the Alumni magazine for years. So I hope that at the end of this, she'll take time to make sure that I've got the record correct here. But that said, the other part of this was that most alumni groups were really self-governing and self-managing grassroots groups that were working throughout the state to build connections and prestige and resources and attract students and faculty to the institution. They also served as loving critics when things were happening they didn't particularly like or questioned, and cheerful advocates when things were going well. The first major campaign, according to Janet Shirley's History of the Alumni Association, was a memorial fund drive started in 1921 to commemorate the university's centennial. By 1923, 1.1 million was raised to construct an athletic stadium, women's dormitory, and student union facilities. That's about $18 million in today's money. Imagine trying to build 3 facilities on campus for that today. The IU Foundation spun out of the Indiana University Alumni Association in 1936, following a national trend of universities forming foundations to manage assets and coordinate professional fundraising activities. The foundation has orchestrated at least 12 campaigns since that first memorial fund drive. What started as a one-person effort in 1915 has now grown to a network of 364 full-time advancement staff members working either at the IU Alumni Association, IU Foundation, or on behalf of units on the 8 campuses of Indiana University. 123 of these souls are frontline fundraisers, most of whom work for one of the 7 campuses, 25 schools on our 2 largest campuses, and a dozen other major units on our Bloomington campus. We are regarded as one of the most advanced fundraising programs serving a very complex institution. The foundation that you know today really has, our business model has about 6 components. The first of those is engage. The IU Foundation and the Alumni Association working together more than ever builds and stewards lifelong relationships with current and potential supporters through a wide variety of outreach opportunities. We help support fundraising. We raise money, working with our colleagues across all campuses. We cultivate and solicit charitable gifts from individuals, corporations, foundations, and other organizations. In the large decentralized university, much of this is carried out by these units. Since about 1985, when the foundation started to fund development officer positions in the units, that has grown now into that over 100 plus to almost 200 people that are engaged in some level of fundraising. But a lot of that work is actually carried out in a distributed model, not centrally by the foundation. Most people don't realize that. We receive funds. The IU Foundation processes, monitors, and disperses donor designated funds. The majority of the funds we have are designated by the donors. There's not a lot of discretionary money floating around over here that just gets kind of spent. What little there is really controlled by the president and CFO of the university. But this work of receiving the funds means that we're managing more than 10,000 individual gift accounts. It's actually grown maybe higher than that, but by the counting I used for this today, it's about 10,000. And there's around 185,000 individual transactions within all these accounts, money coming in, money coming out. When the money goes out, it goes to the units according to donor intent in a given year. We also invest the donations we receive to ensure they sustain their long-term value and keep pace with inflation. So we manage those funds such that we compound the interest earned because we have a defined distribution that goes into those accounts. And the reason for that is to manage the vagaries of the economy, but also so that the value of that endowment, which ultimately takes the form of funds, individual gifts or individual donations in these accounts I'm talking about, so that that value grows over time, so that those resources grow. And I've got a story at the end of this that I think really drives home how that works. And our business model involves utilizing funds. In fiscal year 20, we distributed $173 million in gift income and funds to IU. A third of those go to scholarships and financial aid for students, about 25% to faculty support and research, 23% to academic support, and then about 20% goes to facilities, operation, and maintenance activities. And then also we enable, as a separate nonprofit corporation created to support Indiana University, we operate business units like you would find in any organization. You know, there's the Office of the President, the talent management, accounting, budget, finance, facilities management, et cetera, that really enable us to do our work as an organization on behalf of Indiana University. Back to this theme of complexity, IU's business model is grounded in responsibility-centered management, which means all units keep the funds they receive and pay a tax for central services. It also means that these units behave like states and taxpayers and usually respond well to incentives and cost share arrangements. So the foundation uses a portion of the resources it has to reward gift officer performance, to help expand and grow our capacity to conduct and do fundraising with new technology systems, additional staff in the units, and things like that. Also, IU enjoys a special relationship with Purdue and other universities in the state of Indiana. If you've forgotten, let me remind you, we offer Purdue degrees on a co-branded campus in our capital city. It's called IUPUI. And those programs increasingly generate, those Purdue programs increasingly generate large undergraduate enrollments on that campus. We also operate four-year medical education programs in 7 locations around the state, including here in Bloomington, where we will soon open this beautiful new academic research center and hospital here on the bypass. Also, the state's largest hospital network operates as IU Health, which we don't control, nor do we generate royalties from their use of our brand equity. When that deal was consummated, IU was considered the most trusted brand in the state of Indiana. So I hope this gives you a sense of both the meaning of philanthropy, the history of philanthropy, a little brief history of that, and kind of how the foundation has evolved and how it operates today, in service to one of the world's most ambitious, comprehensive, and venerable institutions of higher education and advanced research. However, the true meaning of philanthropy is expressed by understanding its impact on individuals and how that shapes their ability to make a difference in the world. My own story with IU begins with a $500 scholarship. I'm the son of a struggling single mother who was a teacher, who was really worked hard to make ends meet so that I could come to school here at IU. And I remember when we knew I got a scholarship, my mom reminded me that that means somebody at IU believed that I belonged here and that I had the potential to graduate. And I never really forgot that, even though I did get to make a special trip to the dean's office of the college the semester I was elected student body president to remind me that I was here to go to school. I never really forgot that somebody believed in my potential enough to help make it possible for me to go. But that's just a little bit of my story. Let me share a few more stories to help you understand the meaning of philanthropy. Let me tell you about Maja Zion. Maja was born in Liberia and was 3 years old when the country broke out in civil war. Her parents and baby sister, who was a US citizen, were granted asylum in the United States. But Maja and her brother had to stay in Liberia, where they traveled along with their aunt across West Africa to a refugee camp in Ghana. When Maja was 7, her parents were given the opportunity to bring one more child to America, and they made the heart-wrenching decision to send her brother. However, when the day came for her brother to leave, he was nowhere to be found. So they took Maja instead. Maja later found out that her brother did that so that she could be the one to go to America. Maja attended Valdosta State University in Georgia, where she studied with an alumnus of the Maurer School of Law. He spoke of the school and Bloomington as a magical place in the world, and Maja knew that's where she wanted to be. So Maja came to IU to study at the Maurer School on the Milton Stewart Fellowship. That fellowship allowed her to work for Constitutional Reform Committee in Liberia. It allowed her to play a key role in drafting a new Liberian constitution. She also went to India to learn about the law system and rules governing the treatment of women and children. Now, remember, at the time she's doing this work, girls were, and actually still are, regularly raped, harassed, and assaulted in refugee camps, which is what led Maja to her career choice. She currently works in the Marion County Prosecutor's Office in Indianapolis, prosecuting juvenile sex crimes and dealing with violence cases. She hopes one day to do the same thing for the International Criminal Court. That's just one example of what philanthropy makes possible. As our beloved and revered provost, Lauren Robel, has observed, many, many, many talented students come to school and face things they didn't expect to face. I was talking to the vice provost for enrollment management yesterday about a new venture we're working to develop. And by his estimate, there may be as many as 500 students at IU Bloomington whose families earn less than $75,000 annually, who still have unmet financial need. That's even after all the scholarship support donors have so generously contributed to help address this issue. Well, that means we have students that still face challenges. So, for example, when the father in Maheen Tahir's host family in Kokomo lost her job, his job, she lost financial support for college. Some of you may know this. At the end of her first year of law school, Lauren Robel had a child and thought she'd have to drop out. But because both of them found continuous and immediate support to help them get through that, weather those storms, they were able to continue their studies. And I think certainly in the case of Lauren, that's worked out pretty well for all of us in this community and at this institution and at our law school. During the pandemic, we launched an IU Student Emergency Fund to ensure we could provide students continuous and immediate support. Here are 3 stories, 2 anonymous, on the impact that fund has made. An IU Kokomo student received emergency support, and she wrote, or he wrote, when the global pandemic hit, the restaurant I worked at closed. My daughter's school closed, and my classes were all moved online. The IU Kokomo Student in Crisis Fund graciously sent me enough money to pay for 2 months of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, the lifeline to his education. And as the single father of 2, this was huge assistance, and I'm grateful. Another student applied for emergency funds. I've lived paycheck to paycheck and have had an overwhelming amount of stress. These funds would help out with the purchase of groceries and brighten light into this scary, dark, and anxiety-filled time. And then Jose Maya, class of 21, recipient of emergency student support, said, this year jobs have been scarce and finding the resources has been challenging. Nevertheless, you all lifted me and gave me the opportunity to complete and continue my education. And I know I'm not the only one. Now, these are not big multi-million-dollar gifts. These are tens and came in as ones, tens, and hundreds of dollars. One donor did a pretty dramatic thing around food insecurity as part of this. And that individual wishes to remain nameless. But the point I'm trying to make here is the power of philanthropy is not always measured in the biggest gift. It's in the deepest impact it can have in the lives of our students. So as I move to close, and I want to really put the foundation in context here, I want to share one last story that might answer the question of why philanthropy matters, and also why the IU Foundation exists. Jim and Marjorie Whitehead, Jim, a World War II veteran, met at Indiana University, and they went on to great careers in higher education. He's an administrator in student affairs at some of the nation's leading universities, and Marge as an advocate for early childhood education wherever they travel. Marge actually was one of the women that helped get the Little 500 started off the ground. So when Marge died in 2018, Jim made a gift to establish an early childhood scholarship in her name. And about 3 weeks ago, Jim called the office. Jim's now 96. And he said, I'm going through my papers and I'm reading this gift agreement. You know, I've got a PhD from Indiana University. I understand what language means, but I just want to make sure I understand this one word in my gift agreement. Perpetuity. And he said, what does that really mean? And what I said back to him was, Jim, it means that your wife's memory will be preserved forever. And every year, we will be in a position to offer a student interested in the field she worked in a scholarship. And the way we manage that means that it will grow over time. And so there'll always be somebody that's significantly supported by this money. And we'll always be able to tell Marge's story because it's so well documented in this gift agreement. And so her memory will live on forever. And students will benefit for generations to come. So that's why we do what we do and how it works and why it matters. Thank you so much for the gift of your attention and the opportunity to share a little insight. I'm happy to answer any questions you have or refer you to people here who have better answers than me. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today and share a little bit of this history and this story of meaning and impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JT. This is fascinating. I'm sure you could share so many more stories with us, and we'd love to have you back again to tell us more. Does anyone have a question to start us off?
I have one thing, I have a comment. I think that I'm hoping that JT will be around in perpetuity.
Back at you. I feel the same way about you, Charlotte.
Owen Johnson.
JT, I should mention, first of all, that during the memorial drive in the early 20s, Ernie Pyle contributed or pledged and made good on it, a $200 gift, which at the time was an average monthly salary. So that was a big donation. And that leads me to my question. There are some alumni, I'm not an alum, so it's not a matter for me, but some alumni think that the foundation gives too much attention to big donors. And even though it says, as you have said, that small donations are important, less attention is paid now to those small donors than used to be the case. What are your thoughts?
Well, part of our strategic plan has a project to really pay attention to what we call here the donor pipeline. And I think that has a lot to do with the criticism that you're bringing up. I think most alumni who feel that way out of a legitimate feeling that their passion and commitment to the place and the donors, their friends, seem sometimes disproportional to the response. So that's something I think we can work on. I think the other part of that, having been the alumni director for 11 years, is I think the Alumni Association, the foundation, can do a much better job of working together to steward and cultivate and validate those things. And perhaps because I have the unique experience of having a $500 scholarship, I have a deep and personal connection to the idea that the big dollars really do drive big numbers and have big impact, but we need to be attentive to the people that give regularly and consistently over time. There's a lot of things I think we do try to do to steward people who have a history of continuous giving, to recognize that. I know in this job, a significant part of my time is spent writing notes, not just to people with a lot of zeros behind their gifts, but others. So I think we do our best to balance that. And we will continue to be vigilant about that, because if we don't treat everybody with dignity and respect and value their giving, it goes away. So I think it's a fair criticism, and we'll address it as best we can with the resources we have.
Good answer.
Susie Graham.
Hi, JT, I wear your hat at Ivy Tech here in Bloomington, and thank you for your comments today. I was taking lots of notes. It's always good to hear the perspective of development through a different lens. Something that we have also noticed, going to your notion of, not every gift is going to be that six-figure gift, right? But it can be equally impactful, even if it comes in at a lower level. And something that we have tried to do on our campus is to demonstrate that anyone can be a philanthropist. And we have a growing payroll deduction program for our employees. And so we have employees who give $5 a month, right, over a course of time. And we try to demonstrate that value to them through storytelling, just as you have done today. And I was curious if you have any other best practices you could share from IU's perspective in ways that you engage your employees.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for what you do. My family benefits from Ivy Tech. My daughter is a student there. And, in my career, I've always felt that the relationship between IU and Ivy Tech needed to be robust and strong. That's why we worked in government relations to improve the path of transfer and degree coordination and course transfer. And really, Ken Gross-Lewis deserves an enormous amount of credit for that. And John Weichart. John and I worked side by side with Ken and then others that took over for Ken later to make that happen. And I just think it's benefited our community and communities around the state immensely. And Ivy Tech must be strong and robust. And I hope as many of you that are committed to that mission are giving to that. I really have enjoyed working with Jenny Vaughn too. She's just terrific and a great follow on to John for this community as well. The first thing is to ask. I think the first thing is to ask and honor the gifts that people make. We've also have been lucky to have some faculty leaders who believe in our mission. We had a record number of, both in dollars and donors of faculty who joined in the For All campaign. And we found ways to use planned giving and other structures to make some of that giving possible over time. I think those were parts of the key to the success. Matching had a big impact as well. But also involving faculty that really have a great story, and peers asking peers in that regard, I think was also a win for us as well. Because when you have a colleague who can share their story, I think that's even more effective than if somebody in my role or in a formal role does it. And so those are some of the things I think we did: peer to peer, asking, providing easy, accessible tools and structures to be able to make the gifts at a level that people thought mattered. And also, I think we've tried to do a good job of honoring and stewarding those gifts. We'll see what that looks like in the next campaign, whether we really did a good job on that or not, but we benefit greatly. Record numbers of people that work here signed up. I mean, that was one of the things I did. My scholarship goes to the student member of the alumni board that we appoint every year, and it's in the memory by, I always get choked up when I bring it up. My mother and my aunt, who made it possible for me to attend Indiana University and be a student leader here, because I had to work some, but they worked extra hard so that I could do that for pocket money, not to stay here. And it allowed me to do things at this place that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I want that student leader to always hear that story.
I have a question.
Charlotte, go ahead.
Yes, as I understand it, that grants that faculty get go to the foundation, right? They're processed through the foundation. Do you want to address how faculty benefits from that and how the academic activities of the university are enhanced by that?
Sure. All the money raised on behalf of Indiana University comes to the foundation, and it's managed according to individual agreements between the donor and the individual. So those dollars go to what the donor wants, whether it be the person or a program. So what that does for faculty is, in the case of scholarships, it gives them access to the best and brightest students without regard to those students' ability to pay. Many of our scholarships are merit-based and tied to specific disciplines. So high achieving students in programs of greatest impact. So the people they're educating and developing, whether they be graduate students or undergraduates, get them access to the best and the brightest that we can attract. We have a record number now of named chairs. Most of those are not 100% funded. This is supplemental to the base salary. So it's important to keep in mind. When you hear about all these chairs, it's not like all of a sudden there's all this money freed up. They're usually matching. But what that does is it provides extra funds or supplemental funds to salary or operating. There's probably some faculty on this call that could explain how theirs have worked. But also in recruiting faculty, when we can say, come here and know that you are special because there's a special program or a title that goes with the role you play here, that I think has to be attractive to some people that want to be recognized for how great they are. We have extraordinary faculty here. And this is one way to, again, like I said, with the student scholarship, I suspect it feels similar. Look, not only is this place asking me to come and build my career here, it's also saying, I'm doing something special enough that it merits special recognition. And so that helps defray some of the full costs of attracting the best that we can on the faculty front. And then of course, on the facility side, it's not all big buildings. It's also funding to help build out laboratories and teaching environments and the specialized spaces that our faculty need to do their best work. So those are some of the ways that I think immediately of how that does this. The beautiful, I mean, the campus beautification funds make this a beautiful place to wander and explore and reflect and meet and learn and relax, that I also think distinguishes us. We know from our research among prospective students, that's a major factor in recruiting. It may not be a scholarship, but it certainly adds to our competitiveness. So it all adds up and it all matters. And again, not all these gifts are the big gifts that get the media attention. A lot of these are a lot of small things at time and small gifts every year or every month that come in and add up to a big amount of money over time.
Tim Jessen.
I am not an alumnus of the university, though my wife works there. I have a lot of connections to Ivy Tech, and I really appreciate the Hoosier Links program and others that have brought the two institutions together. I have kind of an off-the-wall question. About 2 summers ago, maybe 3, I was out in front of the Musical Arts Center about this time in the summer, and there was a photographer there, and I said, and then he kept staying there for several hours, and I said, what are you doing here? He said, well, we'd like to get somebody to give enough money to rename the Musical Arts Center. Now, we all know about the Jacob School of Music and the transformation there, but are there any other big ticket items that the university is wanting to fund through a generous, a big gift?
We don't have enough time for me to give you the list of all the things that we'd still like to do. I mean, and let me be clear, you know, this looks like a big place, right? And we promote all, like we just raised all this money, and some people might say, well, what do you need more for? This is a place that thrives because it works at the speed of thought and at the pace of hope. And what I mean by that is we have amazing faculty who are always trying to push the boundaries of knowledge and learning and understanding. So there's always one more thing we want to do. And for students, there's still always going to be unmet need or opportunity. For example, not all these scholarships provide room, board, and books. Not all these scholarships allow students to study abroad. I mean, if you come from humble beginnings, you may have to work while you're in school here. And that may limit your ability to get these internships and to go study abroad and do all the other things that better resource students can do. And that just, the costs of all that grow all the time. So there's always going to be things that we're trying to find donors to support. But let me be clear about this. Fundamentally, nothing gets done here if there's not a donor that believes in doing it. So it's not like the university is pushing all of its will onto people and this is a sales job. It's really a conversation about, like when you get in the really transformational conversations, whether they be something modest like I just did or something huge like somebody else does, when you really start to get into that conversation, you really have to think deeply about what you want to do and what you want to preserve long-term with whatever means you have. And so there's always going to be things like that we want to do. And we are going to put our best foot forward in presenting some of those. Yeah. You know, if things are named, it's not because people are buying it to get their name on it. It's because they're investing in opportunity or possibility here. So if you think about the named school things, many of those are attached not to building the building, they're scholarships and they're fellowships and they're things that advance the academic mission. And yes, some of them also include money for facilities because they're expensive. But there's always going to be things we want to do because we have faculty and students that always have new ideas or greater need or what have you. Sorry for the long answer, but it's I don't want to leave you with like a simplistic, pithy talking point. All of this has got rich context to it.
John Vandervee.
JT, do you have a sense of how much giving to IU comes from non-alums?
Yeah, it depends on how you cut it, how you divide it up and count it, right? It's all in the counting. So I'm going to say off the top of my head, I think in an individual giving, it's something around, for an overall private giving to the university, it's about 40%. In terms of a percentage of a total donors.
Higher than I thought. Thank
And I
you.
haven't seen new numbers that I can remember off the top of my head from this last campaign. I think there were over 300,000 donors to the campaign, and I want to say a little over half of those were alumni. So this campaign was pretty impactful that way.
Thank you so much. I know, JT, you have a meeting to get right to, so I don't want to keep you. If anyone has one last minute question, I think we could work it in.
I have a quick question. I'm going to jump in. Hey, JT, it's great, really fantastic to have you. We're at a pivotal time here with leadership and so many transformative things that are happening in higher education and technology. I mean, just, all over the map. What do you consider to be the biggest challenge ahead now for you in this arena?
Oh, I don't see things as challenges. I really don't. There are growth opportunities, and I'm not just playing. You're a very literate, articulate person, so I'm not just doing wordplay here. I just see it all as opportunity. It's only a challenge if we accept that we can't make it better. And so I'd say it's all opportunity. How do we acquaint more people with what we can do here at Indiana? How do we also, this is maybe something I personally feel, I think sometimes at a big place like this, we get hooked on breadth over depth. We want big numbers instead of deep impact. And so how do we really focus in building deeper relationships and honoring our supporters and engage with them in meaningful ways? So to me, the challenges ahead are just how do we, I can give you all the nerdy management challenges, but from a larger lay perspective, how do we all remember that we need to preserve these institutions and we need to help them be stronger? Because my sense is with all the societal changes we're facing, there's a lot of forces that seek to take apart enduring institutions. Sometimes for good reasons. Like I think the work that we're having to deal with to confront our legacy of implicit bias and discrimination is a very good and healthy thing that we're doing, honestly, as a personal point of view. But I also think we have to be careful not to try to dismantle this all in such a way that we lose the ability to have discussions where we can agree to disagree, or where we can say, for now, this is what I think until science tells me something differently. I mean, look at the response to this pandemic. People have tended to see things as fixed. If we say today, this is what science says, and then we say science changed, we can't trust it, that's dangerous. And so institutions like this that promote ideas and dialogue and discovery and the idea that we evolve and grow and that we don't all have to agree on the same things the same way every day, I think is really important to preserve. And so if there's a challenge, it's that we all as individuals in our daily walks of life have to think about that. My wife and I have a very divergent view on how to handle certification of whether people have been vaccinated or not at work. And you know what? I love her. And the fact we disagree on that keeps me from being single-minded on what I think about that. And so that's healthy. That's why we live in this country. And that's what these institutions fundamentally try to do. Advance knowledge, transform lives, and make things better. So there are no challenges. There's only opportunities to continue to build and sustain that important element of the society. And in this community, we are so lucky to have all the mess of it right here in our backyards.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time today. I really hope I can come back sometime and maybe we're in person. I'm missing the human contact. So
Yes.
hope to see you all.
Okay,
Very
great.
soon.
Thank
We
you.
will welcome you back. very
Thanks.
happily.
Thanks.
Well, let's close our program formally with reciting the four-way test after I tell you about next week's program. June 22nd on Zoom, Kelly Eskew will be telling us about business ethics, sustainability policy, and the law. Her area is sustainability in business, or the triple bottom line of environmental, economics, and social dimensions of sustainability. She'll speak about UN Sustainability Development Goals focused on the values of Rotary. So it should be a very great presentation. I hope that you'll join us. And let's close out with the four-way test. Of the things we think,
You think
say, or do. First,
First, is it the
is
truth?
the truth?
Second,
Second,
Is
is it
it
fair?
fair to all
Concerned?
concerned?
third,
Third,
Will
will
it
it
build
build
goodwill,
goodwill,
better
better
friendships?
friendships?
Fourth,
Will it be
Fourth, will it be beneficial to all?
beneficial to all concerned?
and fifth, is it fun? Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See
Thank
you.
you.